Schizophrenia. Okay, so schizophrenia. It's still like one of the most confusing disorders we've ever had to deal with as a species. Nobody really knows what actually causes it, and the symptoms, oh boy. They go from the classic voices in your head thing all the way to, time getting weird and your entire sense of self just kinda collapsing in on itself. Anyway, in this video, I pulled together one of the more, deeply unsettling symptoms. The kind of thing that makes you look at the human brain and go, right, cool. So we're running wet spaghetti code in a skull-shaped jar. When the schizophrenic gaze sees reality. So with the whole rise of internet culture and, everyone suddenly becoming a part-time philosopher after watching one sci-fi movie, we started getting these theories, like the simulation theory, the we're all living in a cosmic GPU benchmark thing. And from that, people somehow jumped to this idea that folks with schizophrenia have enhanced brain sensitivity, as in they're allegedly seeing the real reality, the backstage, the debug menu, stuff the rest of us normies can't perceive because our brains have the audacity to filter it out. According to this take, the hallucinations and the voices aren't like distortions, they're glimpses, glitches in the matrix, little windows into the raw code of existence. Yeah, internet logic at its finest. But here's the thing, we already know that whatever you and I call reality is basically a reconstruction, a custom interpretation your brain builds out of whatever signals it gets. So the idea kinda spins out from that. If everyone's reality is a brain-made interpretation, what happens when the interpretation system itself starts breaking the rules? Yeah, welcome to the rabbit hole. So this whole idea that people with schizophrenia might be seeing the real reality, on paper, it kinda sounds logical, right? Like, you can see where the internet cooked that up. You've probably heard of the hollow mask illusion. Yeah, that creepy psychology class party trick. You take a mask that has one normal, convex face and one hollow, concave side. Then you spin it around. And a healthy brain, yours, mine, whoever, just immediately falls for the scam. No matter which side you're looking at, you still see it as convex. Your brain basically refuses to believe in hollow faces. But here's the weird part, the paradox. A person with schizophrenia doesn't fall for it at all. They see the mask exactly as it is. Concave where it's concave, convex where it's convex. No automatic brain fix, no illusion, nothing. So yeah, suddenly the idea that their perception works differently doesn't sound so outlandish anymore. And yeah, studies back this up, which is the part that really freaks people out. Like, up to 99% of healthy people fall for the hollow mask illusion. 99%. Meanwhile, almost every patient with schizophrenia just sees the mask correctly. No glitch, no visual hack, no brain autopilot. So of course the internet goes, wait, what if they're seeing the real world? What if we're the ones hallucinating because our brains keep baby-proofing reality for us? And it sounds poetic. While the so-called healthy people get tricked, the schizophrenic brain just pushes straight through the illusion like, yeah, I see what's actually there. But the romanticism kinda falls apart the moment science walks into the room. Because the brain isn't a camera. It's not some passive little eyeball GPU combo. It's an active interpreter, a guess machine. It builds your reality based on expectations, predictions, shortcuts, all the stuff it thinks should be there. So it's not that schizophrenic individuals see the real world, it's that their brains aren't doing the usual smoothing, patching, and autocorrecting that ours do 24/7, which is, a very different vibe. Alright, so here's the deal. The brain's running on two main processing modes. First, we've got bottom up. That's the raw data. Light, shadows, shapes, all that visual noise coming straight from your eyes. No opinions, no philosophy, just pixels basically. Then there's top down. This is where your brain gets all bossy. It interprets the raw data based on experience, memory, knowledge, basically everything it thinks it knows about the world. It's like a paranoid editor constantly rewriting reality. And to see this in action, check out another classic illusion. Picture a chessboard. There's a cylinder casting a shadow over some squares. Square A looks darker than square B, right? Your brain is like, nope, can't be wrong. Chessboards are black and white. So even though those squares are technically the same color, your brain insists they're different. Top-down processing at work. Expectations overriding reality. Your brain basically lies to you to make sense of things. But here's the kicker. Those two squares, they're literally the same shade. Every pixel identical. Your brain just decided otherwise. See, a healthy brain isn't broken for falling for this. It's efficient. These little illusions, they're shortcuts designed to stop your nervous system from frying itself. Top-down processing lets us ignore ambiguity, make snap judgments, navigate the world without having a mild existential crisis every 5 seconds. Take away that top-down filter, and suddenly your brain is like, everything is confusing. Everything is screaming, I give up. Reality becomes chaotic, sensory overload everywhere. So yeah, the whole schizophrenia equals enlightenment romanticism, total nonsense. And honestly, kinda harmful. It glosses over just how complex, exhausting, and devastating this disorder really is. And trust me, we haven't even scratched the surface yet. A fracture in the perception of time. Alright, so in the second part of my brain deep dive, I was going on about time, that weird, slippery concept your brain just invents to make sense of events. Basically, your subjective point of view glues moments together so you don't completely lose it trying to process every millisecond. While digging through research, I stumbled on a symptom tied to schizophrenia, a disturbance in time perception. And by disturbance, I mean time literally falls apart. For the patient, events don't have order anymore. Memories, thoughts, actions, they all just pile up in one chaotic mess. You know that feeling when you crash asleep at night, wake up the next morning, and suddenly the day you just lived feels like it happened, I don't know, last week? That's the mild version. In schizophrenia, the brain basically lives in a permanent, scrambled yesterday, tomorrow, now soup. Yeah, it's as unsettling as it sounds. But that little falling asleep, waking up, feels like yesterday example, it's basically a baby version of what really happens in schizophrenia. These fragments, memories, thoughts, events, they can jump days, even years. And the wild part, patients often don't realize it's happening. A moment from childhood might hit them like it just happened 5 minutes ago. Or they remember getting up in the morning, and then suddenly they open their eyes and it's already evening. For the rest of us, life flows smoothly. Past, present, future, neat little line. For them, the day just shatters into fragments. Broken, jumbled, chaotic. Time is no longer a river. It's more like a shattered mirror. People usually mix this up with like the normal subjective flow of time thing. You know, when a 45-minute lecture feels like an eternity, but scrolling Instagram makes 2 hours vanish into a black hole. Totally different. Here, it's not just a warped feeling. The principle of chronology itself breaks down. The timeline your brain relies on, gone. And the brain, oh, the brain is funny. As I said before, it's running on two modes, bottom up from the senses and top down from experience. Normally, they play nice together. Data comes in, your brain interprets it, everything works. But with this symptom, that balance just collapses. Sensory input gets delayed, scrambled, chaotic. Flashbacks, they don't just stay in the past. They feel like they're happening right now. They're not literally seeing history unfold, but their perception treats it as present. Imagine your mind turning the past into a live stream, except you didn't sign up for it. The death of self-awareness. And this right here is why reality is basically glued together by brain function. Every healthy person has an internal point of I, that little anchor from which they think, act, and, generally exist. Thoughts, emotions, they feel like yours, solid, personal, unquestioned. But in schizophrenia, things get wild. There's this thing called psychic automatism, and it can completely annihilate that sense of self. Like the I you've been holding on to, gone, evaporated. Your own thoughts and actions might start feeling like someone else's, or worse, like they're happening automatically, outside your control. Yeah, it's as terrifying as it sounds. So this syndrome, psychic automatism, usually shows up in paranoid schizophrenia, and it's honestly one of the most terrifying aspects of the disorder. It's not just, I feel weird, it's losing the entire sense of control over your actions and your inner world. The patient starts believing that their thoughts are being inserted from the outside, that their actions aren't theirs, that someone or something is basically hijacking their mind. And yeah, sometimes they're convinced other people can literally read their thoughts. But the part that really hits you in the gut, they're absolutely convinced their own emotions, their movements, even the way they react to things aren't theirs. They feel like an observer trapped in their own life, watching their body act under someone else's remote control. It's not metaphorical, it's not poetic, it's their lived reality. And that's what makes this symptom so deeply, uniquely frightening. And in some rare, absolutely mind-bending cases, patients don't just lose their sense of I, they replace it with something cosmic. They might feel like they're part of the universe itself, or like they are an object, or even a god. And no, that's not metaphor, that's not, wow, they feel really important today. It's literal. That's the lived texture of their consciousness in that moment. For a healthy person, this state is basically unimaginable. The closest you've probably ever come is like a tiny dissociative blip, that weird moment where you feel slightly detached from your thoughts, like yourself stepped 2 inches to the left. But even that's the dollar store knockoff version compared to what happens here. This is dissociation dialed up to cosmic horror levels. Yeah, so if you've ever had even a tiny flicker of that, wait, am I me feeling? Take that, multiply it by like 20, and then stretch it out over years. That's the scale we're talking about, not a moment, a reality. And here's the part that'll really crawl under your skin. During remission, when they're supposedly better, some patients described feeling something inside them. Not a voice, not a hallucinated character, but something sinister, communicating in this horribly indirect way, not through speech, not through thoughts, but through written notes. Notes produced by their own hand, as in they'd sit down and their hand would write messages from the thing they felt was living inside them. Yeah, try sleeping after hearing that. And then you get stories like this, which honestly sound like something out of a horror movie, except they're real. Here's how one patient described it. Well, one of the weirdest things was automatic writing. At some point, I started thinking there was this malevolent being living inside me, like a demon, and I had to help it, drag it out of whatever state it was in, and lead it to God. And then at some point, this thing started writing with my hand. You just kind of loosen your grip, let your hand go a little, and it writes by itself. At first, it was just scribbles, but then you ask a question and it like answers. And right here near the door, he stood like this for almost 2 years without moving. Yeah, that's the level we're dealing with. Delusional hallucinations. So probably the most infamous symptom of schizophrenia, the one everyone thinks they understand, is hallucination. And yeah, voices are the big one, the stereotype, but the actual spectrum, way broader than people realize. Some folks hear sounds, some see full-on images, some get the whole sensory buffet, audio, visual, emotional, all hitting at once. And here's the part people forget. For the patient, these voices and images aren't weird thoughts or imagination. They're real as you hearing me right now, as real as seeing someone walk past your window. And even within hallucinations, there are subtypes. You've got commenting hallucinations, like an unwanted podcaster narrating your life, aggressive ones, which are exactly as fun as they sound, and commanding hallucination, the truly dangerous one, the ones that tell people what to do. It's not one symptom, it's a whole ecosystem of altered reality. How terrifying these hallucinations are really depends on the person's perception. Some people don't feel fear at all, because to them, it's just reality. If a voice talks, it talks. If a figure shows up in the corner, well, that's just who's in the room today. There's no "is this real" filter. But others, they live in constant fear. Imagine not being able to trust your senses, ever. Every shadow, every whisper, every noise could be something your brain is fabricating, and you have no way to tell. That's the daily baseline for some patients. Visual hallucinations are less common than auditory ones, but they're still pretty widespread. We're talking distorted faces, dark silhouettes, figures that just watch. The kind of stuff that would send a healthy person into a panic attack. Except for someone with schizophrenia, it's just another Tuesday. And then you get stories like this one, which honestly sounds surreal until you remember it's someone's actual life. I had different cartoon characters, semi-transparent entities, in the apartment and inside the TV. First in one TV, then in another. Yeah, imagine Tom and Jerry showing up uninvited in your living room. Hallucinations really are one of the most bizarre, fascinating parts of the disorder, and science does have a pretty good explanation for them. It all comes down to this. The brain can't tell the difference between a thought and an external sound. Normally, your inner voice is clearly tagged as me. It's internal, safe, recognizable. But in schizophrenia, that boundary just collapses. The brain starts treating its own thoughts like someone else is saying them out loud. And boom, voices. Same deal with visuals. A healthy brain keeps fantasy and reality separated. Like you can imagine a dragon without assuming it's chilling in your kitchen. But for a patient, that separation fails. Internal imagery leaks out into the sensory world. Their brain treats imagination as something physically present. It's not seeing things. It's the brain mislabeling its own creations as external reality. Alright, so famous example time, John Nash. Yeah, the mathematician behind A Beautiful Mind. Classic Hollywood take, right? But here's the thing, the movie totally exaggerated the visual hallucinations. He didn't actually see imaginary roommates or cartoon characters running around his office. What he did experience, and this is the part that really matters, was hearing voices, and sensations that, to him, felt completely real. Daily life was basically interlaced with these hallucinations, whether he liked it or not. That's kind of the brutal truth of schizophrenia. Hallucinations aren't a weekend trip into Weird Town. They're woven into every day. Some people get a slightly easier ride, some don't. And you can guess which version is less fun. Okay, so this one's kinda wild. Unlike Capgras, where your brain is like, yep, that one person has been swapped out, here the masks just keep rotating. The whole world turns into this improv theater where everyone around you keeps switching roles mid-scene. But, and this is important, the patient isn't literally watching faces melt or transform. It's not a horror movie. It's the perception that flips. The brain just reassigns identities, takes a memory, slaps a new label on it, sends it back out onto the stage. The closest thing healthy people get? Dreams. You know when someone in your dream looks nothing like your friend, but your brain's like, yeah, that's totally Jessica. Same vibe. Except for patients, that's how reality feels, constantly. And yeah, that's as disorienting as it sounds. Alright, final note. Tell me in the comments if you've ever had dreams like that. You know, the, wait, who even is this person kind of stuff. Making this video, not exactly a walk in the park. So if you actually enjoyed it, show some love. Drop a like, leave a comment, it really helps. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That's it. That's all. Bye.